Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this hearing to order on Tuesday, May 24th at 6 p.m. Before we start, we have some housekeeping from earlier in 2022 on our board appointments. And do I have a motion from the board for chairman?
I move that Dwayne Hudak be chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you have a motion for the vice chairman position?
Yes, I do. I'm trying to get Bob's last name here.
Stewart.
Bob Stewart. I move that Bob Stewart be the vice chairman for this year.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
And for secretary, I'll make a motion that we have Chuck Knight maintain that position.
I have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our solicitor appointment has historically here been Elderton Law Firm. We have Dave with us tonight and Ed Betza. Do I have a motion for the board to continue their
I
support?
move we retain him.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have one hearing this evening. I imagine all of you have signed in. Oh, let's back up. Sorry. On our last meeting was 10/26/2021. Do we have any additional information or anything that we go forward and approve those?
Make a motion to add, amend the meeting minutes, add the parcel ID in the second decision that we made as requested. Mr. Crest, I believe. In 6 months, I'm not really sure that's who it was.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for helping me. All right, we get back to tonight's hearing. It's Landmark Advertising as agent for Mark and Deborah Miller, the landowners. It's 7447 Footmill, and a variance requiring a side yard setback and a maximum height in an industrial district on a billboard. Whoever's going to speak, you have to come forward and get your name and address. At this time, anybody that's going to speak, they'll swear you in. Raise your right hand.
Oh, all three, yes.
Swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Hi, my name's John Fessler. I'm from the Quinn Law Firm. The address there is 2222 West Grandview Boulevard, and it's Erie 16506. And I represent Lamar as well as Mark and Debbie Miller. They are the owners of the property at 7447 Footmill Road, which is the property for which we're looking for the variance on. Specifically what we're looking for, this is a permissive use. They want to put up a billboard on the property, and it's a permissive use how it's zoned there. And what we're looking for, there's two variances we're looking for. One's a setback variance, the other one is a height requirement variance. And I'm going to present testimony that those two variances are interrelated. And so I'll present testimony in that regard. Lamar, I'm assuming you might know about who Lamar is, but they're the outdoor advertising company that's actually located, their offices right here in Summit. And they are the agent for the owners. Mark and Debbie Miller, they, I believe, reside in Arizona. They do have a representative here who kind of manages the property, Mr. Sluppy here. Should we have any questions? But anyway, Lamar has approached them about putting a billboard on the property that would be visible from 90. Miller's said, sure, they're okay with that, but they had one requirement. They wanted it to be located in the southeast corner of the Miller property. So you can see, and I don't know where these maps came from, but I'm glad they're there. But right there is where you can see that was hand drawn. This is a map from the assessment office, and you can see Miller's property is that big parcel there. I think it's 50. I can't read that quite, but it's yeah, there you go. 55, almost 56 acres of property, and we're really all the testimony is going to basically be about where the sign location is there. after we got the restriction that the property, that they wanted the property to be in that location. Actually, what we did ask, down here in the corner, where it says actually right to the left of the black block you just put up there.
Where it says 4270 AC.
Yeah, that's, it's okay, but I mean, we have, right there in the corner, that's actually where we would like to have put the board, but, because of convenience to Footmill, to construct it, but they said, no, I'm sure they wanted to develop the whole property. They said, so, well, you can put it up as long as you put it in the corner, which we're fine with. So.
Who was requesting that?
The owners.
The owners, Mark and Debbie Miller said, when Lamar approached them, they said, you can put a board on our property, but we only want it in the southeast corner. And you can see that it's kind of hard to tell, but that's a railroad track going under 90 there. Mm-hmm. So that's where it is. It's basically in the corner. That's the southeast corner of his property. The property on the right side of the railroad track, or east of the railroad, that's a different owner. So that's basically the only place we could put it. And you're going to hear, because of the topography of where that sign location is, we're going to need two things in order to put it up there. We need a slight variance to the height restriction and a variance to the setback from 90. And so with that background as to what we're looking here for today, is I'd like to call Doug. Actually, I have two representatives here from Lamar, Mr. Doug Staub, who is the real estate manager, and also Tim Plotchik, who's the general manager and vice president of the local Lamar office. So, but first I'd like to call Doug, if I may. And I don't know how you guys do this. Do you want him just to testify from right here?
Yeah,
I can stand over here so Cecilia can hear me. It won't be that long. And what I'm going to do, if it's with your permission, I'm going to be asking him about a series of photographs and exhibits. There's not too many of them, but they include these. But I'm going to pass one out for each of you, and it just make it easier for you to follow along what I'm going to be asking him. Here you go. Mr. Staub, can you please state your full name and your address so that they have it for the record here?
Yeah.
And look at these guys, even though I'm over here.
Yeah, it's Doug Staub, 8235 Oliver Road, Erie, PA 16509.
And what is your position at Lamar?
Real estate manager for Lamar Advertising.
Would part of your responsibilities to make arrangements with the millers and property owners to put up signs?
Yeah,
And you heard me in my opening comments that Lamar had approached the millers, and was I correct in that they were okay with putting a sign, but they wanted to put it in the southeast corner? That was the only restriction they put on it?
yeah, that's correct.
And then once you found out about that restriction, did you have an opportunity to go out and inspect the property?
Yeah, with their okay, we went and inspected the property, walked all the way through to the corner where they said it was okay for us to build. And it's a little bit of a strange part of the property because there's a plateau, if you will, of an oblong trapezoid shape. And with that on the property, it's a little difficult to do any sort of project building wise.
Well, let's just, we'll get to the point here real quick. But just for cleanup sake here, the exhibit that's on the board here, that to the right, would you agree that that's a map from the assessment map of the Erie County Assessment Office?
It is.
And is that you that wrote and depicted where the billboard is?
Yes,
And is that the general vicinity of where you want to put the sign and where that plateau you're talking about is located?
yes.
And okay, that's about all I wanted to ask about that. The second exhibit in that package there is a colorful exhibit. Let me show it here to you. You're familiar with this stuff. What does this map show?
This is the Summit Township zoning map showing that it's an industrial 1 property.
So just for clarity's sake, you agree with me that, if I can go up here, guys, that this blue section up here, I'm not tall enough to reach, but you see this is the railroad track, right?
Yes,
Okay, and so in the corner there of 90 in the railroad track, that's where the sign is, and that's in the blue industrial zoned area?
yes.
All right, so there are setback requirements for that. I think that's the next item in your packet there. There's a 50-foot side yard setback and a 45-foot height requirement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, now,
Do we want to mark these?
I was just gonna mark them, Dave, if with as Lamar Exhibit 1, and that we would just go one after the other. I put them in an order on purpose there, so if that's okay with the panel, I'm good with, are you guys good with that? Okay, so the, I think it's the fourth one, the fourth page back, there is a, it's an aerial view, it looks like this. There's an aerial view. Doug, can you please tell this panel what you're trying to show in this photograph?
This photograph shows how there is a state right-of-way fence off of the interstate highway.
It's kind of hard to see the fence there, Doug, so would you agree with me that there's a circle that would be the north side of the road surface for 90, and then there's a surface or another circle that's directly north of that.
Yes.
Is that where the fence is located?
That's correct, that's where the fence is
And
located.
did you measure that distance?
Yeah, well, using Google Maps, I measured that distance. It's
Okay.
an approximate.
All right, and it's a little bit difficult to read, but that's about 50 feet?
Yes,
Okay. Are you guys good?
On the question of the fence, is that this little line that's drawn that goes back that way? That's actually a fence right there?
that's a measurement from,
That's not the fence.
that's not the,
No.
the
The
fence
fence
is,
should go parallel with 90.
correct.
Yeah, in
Okay.
fact,
It's a little hard to see on.
Is it this, right by this,
right by
right by that dirty spot here? It goes right along there and back there. So you're well within inside that fence
For,
where the sign would be.
no,
no.
that,
We'll
no.
show you. You know what? Let's go to the next photograph. That was the one that was up there earlier. Yeah, that sign there. Let's just, so to hopefully clear this up. The white fence that runs parallel, or the white line that runs parallel to 90, what does that represent?
That represents the state right-of-way fence.
Okay, and to be clear, that V-shaped thing that's in the center of the photograph,
That's
what is
an
it?
approximation of what our billboard would be if,
Okay.
Okay, so that's superimposed, that's not there.
correct, that's superimposed.
Yeah, because that doesn't match what we have here, and we're talking about an existing sign or footer. So that was superimposed because it doesn't match your pictures here that you gave us.
Correct.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, he did that just for illustration purposes only. If we were granted this variance, that's the ballpark of where it would be.
The approximation.
Doug, tell us what else you're trying to show. So the white line is
The white
right-of-way.
line showcased there would be the state right-of-way fence line that is currently there.
Okay, and you see the number, everyone can see where the railroad tracks are. Would you, then there's a number between 50, between the railroad tracks and the east side of the sign. What's that? What are you trying to show there?
I'm trying to show the distance of the sign to the edge of the property line, which runs along the railroad tracks.
Okay, there's a rear setback of 50 feet, is there
Correct.
not?
Yes.
And are you trying to show that
We're-
we don't have any issue with that setback in the rear, correct? And there's also the same thing with the 75, that would be the measurement for a rear setback on the northern portion of the, well, it's equivalent to the northern portion of the sign?
Yes.
All right, so we don't have any issue with respect to the rear setback?
No issue with the rear setback.
Okay, and it's kind of a long ways off, because we're talking about property on this side, but the front yard setback is foot mill, right? So we don't have any issue with foot mill.
Correct.
No issue there, and then, obviously, the north side, we don't have any issues. So the only two issues we're talking about, well, really, the only setback issue that we're dealing with is the one on the south side of the property, correct?
Correct.
All right, now, this line right here, Doug, what is that line right there? What's that trying to show?
That's showcasing if the side yard setback were in place, we would have to move our sign further back than what we're proposing, which was, or asking for, was 5 yards on the side.
Is this proportionate? You got 50 feet, like?
It's not very proportionate. This is, again, just illustrative purposes
Yeah.
to try to paint the picture because it's not currently there.
Well, I guess to clarify, the 50-foot line, the vertical one is going up there, 50 feet required setback. You're saying at the end of that line is where the front of the sign should be.
If we didn't need a variance, you're correct. If it would, actually, when the front of the sign, and I think this is what you're giving to, the southern face.
Right.
That
southern face.
should be outside of that, the equivalent of 100 feet out.
So what's the 50 feet on the right-hand bottom?
Right here, this is,
What's 50 feet there?
that's the rear setback, to show you that we're not in violation of the rear setback. If you look on the one exhibit on the ordinance, it talks about there's a side, rear, front, and I'm just showing, that's just for illustration that we're not in any violation of the rear setback, because we're more than 75 feet from the property on the railroad, so we're good there.
Property line, Dwayne.
Right.
That's the setback of the property right there. They need 50 feet from this property.
So superimposed on that, it's not accurate to say that 5 feet.
Okay, those are coming in.
Well-
I didn't hear you, Mr. Knight.
I'm sorry, to see the 5 feet, I mean, because it's not proportional, that's not where that sign's going.
Well, actually, if you want Doug to testify, but the 5 feet, although the sign is non-proportional, the southern edge of our face would be 5 feet from the right-of-way.
From the right-of-way fence.
That's correct.
Correct.
And the fence is the right of way.
Yes.
That's correct.
Okay,
And so that's why we need a variance.
How far is the fence from 90, do we know that?
That's, we said, that's the
That's-
exhibit.
This exhibit showcases it's approximately 50 feet.
Because that,
From the road.
proportionally, where that's imposed is really, it looks like you're 37 and a half feet back from the fence, and you're asking to have it right to that fence within 5 feet.
That's right.
It's kind of dropped in the wrong spot for the diagram here.
Not really. Doug, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what's happening is the size of the sign is not necessarily proportional to the rest of the diagram. But that's where it's going to be, where the drawings, and we have the dimensions on the specifications that are further in your package there. But the southern edge of the sign, the southern is going to be 5 feet from the right-of-way. And that's why we need the variance.
So is the property, is the Miller's property then up to 90? Does it include that area where the fence is?
That would be the state right of way.
That's the state
Okay.
right away.
So
Miller's
they don't-
property would go to,
Right up
up to the
line.
fence, to the fence, that's right. That's right. So, what we're looking for is, that's why we need the variance. And I guess maybe tell them why, Doug. Tell them why we couldn't put the column, the center, the whole board is on a column, okay? And that column is how many feet back from the right of way?
The column, we would place it 23 feet from the state right of way, so that would be a total of 73 feet from the road edge.
Right. That's, okay.
Is what we would be,
You're talking
The
the
fence is how
Can I
far
say something?
from the edge of the
Can
road?
I?
approximately 50 feet.
I can't
Yeah.
take multiple speakers if you're all speaking at the same time.
It's a little bit out of turn, but I don't care if you want him to speak or you want him to just wait for
If
his turn.
you'd like him to wrap up, that's fine.
No, I'll call Tim and keep your thought in mind. I'd like to keep going with here.
Yeah.
Can you please tell me, Doug, so you're saying that the column is 23 feet
From the state right of way
from the
fence.
state right of way and a total of 73 feet
From the
from the
road
road surface,
Yes,
Is that the edge of it?
the edge of the road.
edge of the road.
Edge of the foundation?
The edge of the sign, sorry, because the center mount on
Yeah,
the billboard
okay.
structure, which we have further along in the packet, we have a blueprint of stamped from our,
Specifications.
stamped specifications from our manufacturer of our structure.
But to clarify this though, Doug, to make sure the panel was aware, there's a 50-foot right-of-way from the edge of the road.
Yes,
Then the southern edge of the face of the sign, so would be 55 feet from the road surface, is that
Correct.
correct? And the column for the sign is an additional 18 feet or 73 feet from the road surface, is
That is
that correct?
correct.
Okay, you guys,
That makes sense.
Yeah, the
Okay.
column,
Got
the column does make no sense as far as the variance, because it's the face of the sign that we look at.
Yeah,
Okay?
I 100% agree.
Okay.
100%. Right. Yeah, so, that's why, so that's what we're looking for, is we're looking for a variance as for, we're 5 feet, and the ordinance would require us to be, we're looking for variance of 45 feet. Now, obviously, the question that, begs to be asked here is, Doug, please tell them why we can't move further north and be in compliance with the ordinance. Tell them why.
as I was saying earlier, there's a plateau on this corner of the property where there's a general slope down from the highway to where it plateaus out, and then it goes down another slope even lower where we can't put the required foundation for this sign. We don't really have much wiggle room with the current restrictions of the setback requirements. So with that shape of the land there, we're limited as far as what we can actually do. If we weren't able to put it there, we would have to move further back and we'd be asking for further height variance.
But my question to you, if you don't mind interrupting.
Absolutely.
If you had a higher variance for your sign, you can meet a setback. Because that's your only variance you're really looking for is the setback. Your pole is restricted to a height. You need a variance to go higher so you can see it. That's understandable.
Yeah, again, with the size of what was permissible as far as high-rise, we were a little confused with that. I think we kind of sorted that out with Tammy, but if we needed a larger face, we would have to have a taller pole further back away from everything, and it changes the entire project and what we would be asking
Is
for.
Tim your engineer guy? Or are you the engineer guy?
No, not by, no,
He's the boss. Oh, he's the boss too? Okay.
no, I wish I was an engineer sometimes. No.
No, you don't.
there's, I mean, it's not really supposed to be testifying, but to answer your question is, you're correct. I mean, this is a situation where we have, here is the road surface, then there's a significant drop off to the plateau. The plateau is only so wide, and that's where we want the board to be, on that plateau. It's still significantly, I would say, below the road surface. Now remember, and I think you guys are familiar with this, this is, you're going over a bridge. We're going over a bridge here, over railroad tracks. So the road goes up. So these trees and whatnot, and we'll show you another couple photographs, these trees are significantly below the road surface. I don't know, probably 20 or 25 feet is ground level.
At least, yeah.
At least that far. So, because we got I'm guessing, maybe 10 to 15 feet drop off to the plateau. And then we know, because we have a diagram that it's going to show, we're going to talk about in a minute, below the plateau, it drops another 8 feet. We know that. And that continues to slope away from. So you're now more than 100 feet or so away from the right-of-way.
Correct.
And when the further you get away from the right-of-way, then you got vision signs, and you have to make them bigger, and we'd have to raise, because now you're at least 30 feet below the road surface. You're going to need that much more height. So now we're up to 45 plus 30. You're up to 75 feet in the air. So that's why there's that height is an issue. Let me see if I can move on here and see if we can wrap this up a little bit for you. The next photograph or the next diagram, those are the specifications you're talking about.
Correct.
And the sign there on the left side, they probably can't read that because that's pretty small writing there.
Correct.
Doug, that would be if we were permitted to get the variance and it's at 58 feet, right?
That's correct, overall height.
Yeah, so we're looking, because it's lower than the road surface, because the sign is, ground level is, pretty low.
Right.
We needed the extra 13 feet to get it to basically the proper level the sign should be at, to not have an issue with interfering with traffic and guardrail, motorist safety issues there. And on top of that, there's trees. There'd be tree issues there as well. So that's why we're asking for additional 13 feet in the height. Now, you're right, sir, when you mentioned that if we went down off the plateau, down the slope, we have to go out pretty far because we can't put the cement pad on a slope. Doug, tell them, and it's on those specs, tell them what are the dimensions of that cement pad.
It would be a spread foot foundation, 9 feet wide by 9 feet wide, or 10 feet wide by 10 feet wide by 9 feet deep, with a mesh cage on the top and bottom before the concrete's even poured in, to be able to support the wind load of a sign that's 58 feet high.
So, and I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I assume that's why you can't put it on a slope, because that cement's not going to stay there.
There's a lot of weight in that amount of concrete, and that would probably spill out from any type of slope that would be within half the distance across, so 5 feet or 10 feet. You could have a blowout, and then you would be losing a lot of money worth of concrete.
Did you ever look at the possibility of filling in the 8-foot slope to level that back to get closer to a more reasonable variance, or?
That could potentially be done, but again, it would change our scope of project. We would have to do a larger sign face so that people could see it from the road. We wanted it to be able to be seen from the road so we don't create a hazard of too small of print or anything.
Okay.
So let's go to the next one, just to show these guys what maybe a little bit different view as to
The slope.
what does this show?
This is
Tell these guys.
my colleague standing with our measuring height stick. He's at the bottom of the slope, and at the top there is that plateau. And it's approximately 8 feet or so. I mean, the ground level changes a little bit there at the bottom, not much, but the general picture is that it's 8 feet down from that higher plateau there.
So this, it's kind of hard to see, but right underneath where it says 005.P, is that the guardrail that's the sky or something? Is that the
That's
guardrail
the
at
sky
very
and the
top?
guardrail up top.
Okay, so there's that significant slope down to the plateau, correct?
Correct,
And then at the top of this instrument, that's essentially the plateau,
correct, yeah,
and then there's that other drop. So that's all you're trying to show it this way, right?
that's correct.
Okay, and how tall did you say that guy was who's holding that?
He's about 6 feet tall.
Okay. And then the next photograph is, what is that? That's just,
Winter time, showcasing that there's nothing in the way, and you can kind of see the general slope of the plateau there.
and that's from the road looking down the hill, right?
That's correct. You can almost see the state right-of-way fence there on the left side in the shadow. And so you can see that slope down from the roadside.
Okay. And then the next sign, I don't want to take more of these guys' time, but the next photograph that's a superimposed, that's a superimposed photograph. And
Yeah,
the
it's-
one on the left is, that's if you're heading which direction?
That would be if you were heading east, but that sign would be facing west.
So if you're on 90 heading east, that's what you'd see across the lanes of traffic there. And then the one on the right here, that's if we're heading west, is that correct?
Yes, heading west, and that sign would be facing east.
Okay, and obviously those signs are not there, but we superimposed those just to give the panel an idea of where how the sign would look. If it was, I mean, it's not, to the absolute, inches away, but that's generally where the sign would be.
An approximation.
If we were fortunate to get the variance granted, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I do not have anything further for Mr. Staub. I don't know if the panel had any, we kind of asking questions as we're going along, but if you'd have any other questions for
Yeah, even after this, you still have to get state approval for that variance, correct?
That's correct.
And they may or may not approve it.
Well, the variance, they have to approve the sign permit, correct.
Okay.
The variance,
Which
the
wouldn't-
variance is approved, yeah. They don't have to approve the variance, they have to approve that it has to be continuous zoned industrial since
1959, which we have
But
documented.
they would have to approve where the sign is with respect to their right of way.
for a federal highway, because it's
Yeah.
a different zone
That's
than a
correct.
traditional, like Oliver Road or something to that effect. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but yes, you are correct.
anything further that you guys may have? We basically covered it. Tim, did you want to testify, or did we cover what your concern?
I have a few
was?
points, just to,
Sure,
if it's okay.
absolutely,
with him.
absolutely, that's what we're here for.
I mean, we talked about the topography and, that, where it's at and why. That ground was already raised from a previous sign that was located on that site. That, again, makes it ideal for why the Millers evidently wanted us to put it there, because they had a sign there years ago. And the setback that we're asking for is a 45 feet relief on that. The interesting thing, I think, as you guys mentioned, that is a huge right-of-way versus most other right-of-ways along I-90, just because of the fill that was put in on this particular piece of property. It's a 50 feet, 50 feet from I-90. From the state, yeah, which is a lot further than your typical if you drive down the other side of 90 in Summit. And I understand the importance for side yard setbacks, and I don't know, in the spirit of what this particular project is, that setback applies, to this particular project. I know they're for buildings and different things. This is where we know there's nobody building to the left of this board. I mean, unless something happens on I-90, that's, that'd probably be a while back, and we know nobody's building above the board, so that would block another building to the right or left of this anytime, in the near future. So I just wanted to, kind of iterate my feelings on that. The other thing I wanted to make a note of is what we call sexually oriented businesses. There was a meeting, strip clubs, adult stores and stuff. We actually are also put a stipulation to not advertise those type of businesses at this particular site on the request of the Millers. Just wanted to make that note as well. That's important, so you guys understand, that we look at all different aspects.
Sir, may I ask a question?
Yes.
With today's, what's happening today, will there be political ads on that, or is this just?
Political is freedom of speech, and Lamar, actually, we do have, there could be political ads. The political ads that we present or put up get looked at by our lawyer. Even though there is freedom of speech, we do want to make sure it's a taste of the community.
One other question on the digital one. How often does it reset?
7 to 8 seconds.
How many?
7 to 8 seconds. It would rotate another design system. We pause, and then it would rotate another thing. Design.
Say 78 or 70.
7 to 8 seconds. Sorry, I kind of ran that in a little bit. Yeah. So just want to make sure those facts. Anything other questions that you want to ask me?
I just want to make a couple of comments when you're finished, that's all. These guys might.
I know there's no one here tonight, they've been notified, but have you had any input from the neighbors, the neighboring properties about this sign?
We have not had any input. Really, I'd probably, ask Mark that he knows them.
I talked to all the neighbors, nobody had any concerns.
Just for,
Tammy sent out notices, so.
just for housekeeping purposes, sir, will you please state your name and your address?
Mark Sleppy, 7337 Footmill Road.
And Tim, can you identify your name? And
Yes, sorry, Tim Polochek from our advertising. We're at 8235 Walpole Road.
Do you need a spelling on those?
Did they sign
Yeah.
it? I'll take a picture of the signage, thanks.
Okay. I don't have anything further unless you gentlemen have any questions for Mr. Plotcher.
Do that.
And just in closing here, and again, real brief, is that, for sure.
I mean, I don't know if you guys realize, what the out-of-home industry does for Amber Alerts and any other FBI things. So this board would also be used for that purposes, just so you guys know. We've worked with the state police on a number of different things as far as finding missing persons. Also the sheriff's departments and any other things that we would, deem public awareness. So this could be used for that, and it would be, there was something we call emergency alert system. So if something happened, that gets fed right to the board. Actually, I don't even have a chance to even look at it. It goes right to the board with the Amber Alert system. Marshals work with the marshal's office too. There was that guy that a few years back that was caught in Erie. We had him up on the billboards. The guy had actually noted the billboard that was working at McDonald's when he spotted him at the McDonald's drive-through downtown Erie. So just to let you know, that's another good thing for the community when we look at these things. And that's all I have to say. Do you have any other questions?
Thank you. I don't have any other witnesses, but I just would just make a two-minute just comment here, and that number one, this is a permissive use, so we're not talking about a use variance. Billboards are permitted in where it's zoned here, and what we're looking for is a dimensional variance. And I know it's up to you, this panel, to make that decision, but those are more liberally granted than some of the use variances. Yes, we are asking, I appreciate, sir, that we're asking for a pretty significant variance on the setback. But as alluded by Mr. Plotchik, that it's not like, the reason behind setbacks are so that one property owner doesn't interfere with the next property owner. And clearly that is not going to be the case here because of the 50-foot right-of-way. Where up in the air, we are 55 feet away from like any, it's just not gonna be a traffic issue or anything like that. And the height restriction is frankly, that's more of a safety issue than anything. Because it's so far below the road surface, in order for us to have any visibility on the sign from oncoming traffic, we need that to be raised, and it's not that significant in light of where the trees and other guardrail would be. So with that, we respectfully would request that you grant these two variances to Lamar and the Millers. Thank you.
I have some closing questions.
Sure.
For Solicitor Dave. Who owns the sky above the basic, on the interstate 50 feet they have there? If they want to put something there, whether it's high tension lines, once the sign is up, do they take precedent and they just mow over them and say, hey, we own it, you guys gave a variance, or a high-speed monorail system or something? I mean, that's out of the box, but
Yeah, so you,
we're 5 feet away from.
generally, the owner of the surface owns vertically from those property lines up. And so they're not proposing anything that would encroach or hang over somebody else's property. So for somebody to come through and want to put another improvement, you know, if the state wanted to widen the roadway or put something like that on there, it really doesn't matter what the height of that is. They would need to come in and take a portion of that property. So it would be really be no different if they were going to widen the roadway and take the surface, or if they wanted to put something up above that. So the applicant here owns from that property line straight up, if that answers your
So the state would have to buy any more property, basically.
Well, and the other comment, David, you can certainly chime in if I'm misstating this, but Mr. Sluppy told me that, and I think he's right, is that the state has a right-of-way there, but the Millers own up until the road. So I mean, so if they're gonna put some power lines or something like that, I don't see that happening. The other thing significant, he told me, is that that's a fair question, you know, about the power lines. I mean, maybe probably wouldn't happen, but we don't think that's gonna happen here because they already exist along the northern portion of, we can see on the map on the right, along the northern portion of their property line. There are power lines there currently. So fair question, but I don't believe that's really going to be applicable in this case.
Does any of you have a topo map here of this fall, this grade away from that, the three-way back there, other than the guy with the stick?
No, I don't have a map on hand of the
And
top.
I go back to the foundation, and I go back to the height of the sign. The height makes sense because you have to see it, you have to do it. As far as building a structure or a footer on grade, you don't put concrete on a slope. You go to level grade on a, I mean, we all agree with that, right?
Yeah.
So it's more concrete for the size of the sign as you go up. The 5 feet off the face of the sign is your pie in the sky. Have you ever figured anything like you go back 10 feet more? The fact that, yeah, you can go back 10 feet, it doesn't cost you any more concrete or anything. You still got, you know, you dig your 9 by 9, 9 foot in the ground, 9 by 9, and the pole gets bigger. Is there any?
I guess my response to that would be is, remember, we're not 5, that's where the edge of the face is. So we're out 28 feet, right? Is that right? Yeah, 28 feet from the right-of-way. Now, if we go much further, then we get too close to the edge of the plateau.
But that's his question. How, can you go another 5 feet? Can you go another 10 feet? Or are we just pushing it as close as we can?
The problem with that is moving it further back, we don't know where that prior foundation was. It's something that we would have to dig out, work around. We understand that. But if I may, the one map in your packet with the red arrows showcases that the distance from the state right-of-way is 70 total feet. Granted, that foundation would be 10 by 10, But moving it that much further gets us that much closer to that slope where we're trying to avoid the slope because we want to maintain structural
So
integrity.
you're as far back as you can go and still maintain that integrity.
Yeah, that's correct. That's why we proposed the 5 feet from the state right of way, because it allows us to build what we are proposing.
In other words, we're safe at 5 feet. We know we're safe at 5
I
feet.
know we're safe at 5 feet.
We keep
That's-
going north, we're
If
not so
you put dead ends on your foundation, would that, enhance that structure, that the slope, means nothing? That was my third question was, do you have pictures of the existing base?
I
That's
don't
one thing
have
that's
any,
missing in your program here is, there's a base there. Can you base off of that base? Is that back, or are you putting it right over top and you have to demo it anyway?
again, we couldn't tie into the prior foundation. We would have structural issues with maintaining the integrity, which it would be hard to get a engineer to sign off on something that's already in the ground. Now, other instances, people have ho-rammed out prior foundations to be able to build something new. And that might still be a consideration we would have to go through if that prior foundation is in fact in the way. But maintaining the 5 feet from the state right-of-way would allow us to essentially move it, wiggle it a little 5 feet this way or that way to be able to maintain what we're proposing. And if we had to move it too much further, we would have to propose something completely different.
You also, the further you put it away from I-90, if you run in the face, you gotta go bigger.
Yeah, bigger
It's a
foundation.
bigger sign face, because you want to be, it has to be visible. What we proposed was the minimum that is visible and based on the standard stringers, 75 square feet. The state allows us up to 1,200 square feet, but we didn't even want to, not that that's permitted use anyways, but if you have to make it bigger the further away from you go. So this keeps it in line where it's not overly, large. And also, from the further you put it back, it becomes a safety issue too, not from a visibility. So when someone's driving down 90 now, they got to turn their head a little bit more if you maintain that same size, if that makes sense. We look at safety. We try to do it safe. We try to make it as palatable as possible for everybody involved. And that's what we're hoping to achieve, and makes sense.
Anything else? I have nothing more. Okay, do I have a motion from the board on this variance for the setback and the height?
I'll make a motion to grant both of the variances. The height obviously was not an issue. The setback from the side at 5 feet, I don't believe causes anybody any major concerns at this point in time, and I don't believe it will in the future, so I think both of these should be granted.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
I will, we all team member now?
Yeah.
Motion adjourned meeting. Watch
No,
out.
this is not a question, this is me just personally going to
You
express
say
something.
after we could talk. I said,
No, I didn't know if we could talk, no, I didn't want to have her typing away as well.
All in favor? Aye. Yes, now.